Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Stillness of Heart podcast. I'm your host, Zara Martirosyan. And first things first, happy 2026. From the bottom of my heart, I wish you all a truly magnificent, wonderful new year full of joy, happiness, prosperity, abundance, and of course, strong health. 2026 is a special year because we have collectively entered the new 9-year cycle. So it's the energy of the sun, the energy of new beginnings, a new chapter, fresh energy. Now, of course, that's the general energy, but we are greatly influenced by the energy of our personal year. And if you don't know what that is for you, feel free to drop your date of birth in the comments on whatever platform you're listening to this episode, Spotify, YouTube, or Apple, and I'll get back to you. In the last cycle, in the last 9 years, we had been through a lot. In 2020, which, by the way, happened 6 years ago, guys. Can you imagine that it's been already 6 years? Time really flies, it's crazy. So in 2020, the general year of Rahu, the general year of 4 mystical events, all of a sudden we had this mystical disease coming out of nowhere and turning the world upside down. There were wars, economic crises, what have you. So hopefully, whatever doesn't serve us collectively should have stayed behind in the previous decade, in the previous cycle, and whatever we still need to be clearing out, we will be able to clear out in this new chapter. Well, at least that's what I truly hope for. I hope that we as humans collectively will be able to upgrade our consciousness at least to a certain degree. I hope that we will be able to use technology to our advantage and to eventually do make the world a better place. And today I want to talk to you about something that I find extremely dangerous and toxic, the concept that has been corrupting so many minds in the past couple of decades or even longer. And I truly hope that it will become redundant in the new cycle and we will be able to abandon that concept because we will realize that it doesn't serve us. And that's the concept of idealization of victimhood. You see this paradigm of dividing people into victims and victimizers, oppressors and the oppressed, is extremely corrupt. And let me explain you why. Of course, on the surface, we should be defending those that are weaker. We should be helping those in need. After all, when we bring up kids, this is what we teach them to make sure that they grow up decent human beings. But there are different approaches we may be taking. We may be going and catching the fish for whoever we consider to be a victim or whoever is truly a victim and bringing that fish to them on a silver platter. Or we may be giving them a fishing rod and teaching them how to fish. In the first approach, we are actually doing them a great disservice because what we end up doing is we're stripping them of their agency. We are telling them that they don't have to take any responsibility or any accountability for their actions, as if they are not in charge of their lives, as if they cannot change the circumstances that they may have found themselves in. We encourage them to just rest on their laurels and drown in their misery, waiting for someone else to come and fix their problems or someone else to come and help them or someone else to blame for their misfortunes. And that is a very, very dangerous concept. It is the perpetual state of victimhood. Whereas in the latter approach, we give them back their human dignity. We show them that they are perfectly capable of changing their circumstances, of going there and catching the metaphorical fish, changing their lives around, that the circumstances they may have found themselves in, whatever the reasons, are only temporary. They are able to change the environment, change their life. And you see the concept, the victim mentality goes hand in hand with poverty mentality. They are not even cousins, but sister concepts. Because believe it or not, guys, 60-70% of people that win massive lotteries end up losing all that money, all that acquired wealth in a couple of years. There are different reasons. Of course, First, they have all this family, friends, and coworkers that want to get a piece of their newly acquired wealth because they're also probably stuck in this victimhood mentality, and they wait for someone else to come and fix their problems. That someone else may be the government, the aliens, Santa Claus, God, the universe, rich husband, rich uncle, whoever that may be. But also because very often people that used to be poor and used to have a certain mindset, upon all of a sudden acquiring all that wealth, they don't shift their mindset. The mindset still remains the same. Hence, they don't have capabilities of sustaining, of managing that money. And of course, very often they lack the skills. They are financially illiterate. They don't know what to do and how to manage money. Another example that I would like to share with you is something that happened in my home country, Armenia. In 1988, we had a terrible, extremely destructive earthquake that literally shook the entire country, demolishing entire cities and destroying livelihoods and lives of thousands and thousands of people. And 37 years later, in one of the cities, Gyumri, former Leninakan, we still have people living in those temporary accommodation, the construction trailers that were provided back in the day to them, even by the Soviet government. Why? You may say, oh, the government is to blame, they are corrupt, they didn't build the housing, they didn't give them new accommodation. Yes, maybe that's the case. But in vast majority of cases, what actually happened is the government did build new housing and gave them their new accommodation. But what they ended up doing, they either sold those flats and wasted all that money and went back to live in those construction trailers, or they started renting out those properties, and that is their sole source of income because they don't want to work. And they got back to living how they used to live, without the central heating, without proper sanitary conditions, dire circumstances. So it really comes down to your mindset. And from the energy perspective, it's very easily explainable because you see, guys, 80% of us, and I repeat, 80% of us only live at maximum 20% of our energetic capacity. And only 20% is able to achieve, to get out of that limitations and to change their lives around. Now imagine if you had a phone, you just got a phone or a laptop, and no matter how frequently you charge it, the battery capacity keeps dropping to 10 or maximum 20%. You keep charging it, a couple of hours later, it's still maximum 20%. What would you do with a device like that? You would probably take it back to the store or chuck it away. But we can't chuck ourselves away. Yet 80% of us operate only within 20% of our potential. So we don't actualize all the potential that we have, all the capacity. So how and why are we able to thoughtlessly waste up to 90% of our energy? Guess what, guys? When we are stuck in the victimhood, in victim mentality, when we complain, when we resent, when we blame others or fight with other people or circumstances and think that they are to blame for our misfortunes, when we refuse to take responsibility and accountability, when we want to make money, but we are not sure how, when we are stuck in our ego, live through emotions, and are incapable of seeing things rationally from the bird's eye view, when we're incapable to have an open dialogue and realizing that our truth is not the ultimate truth, when we don't want to put ourselves in other people's shoes or trying to understand their perspective, where they are coming from. When we moan, when we complain, when we are jealous, when we are envious, when we judge, when we gossip, when we discuss things, all these actions that we take on a daily basis, I'm sure we are all to blame. I'm definitely still stuck in the 80%. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. We waste all that energy, up to 90% of it. That's why being stuck in a negative mindset is so dangerous, and victimhood is number one of manifestations of that negative mindset. And if you retrospectively analyze your life and look back, you will realize probably that the episodes when you truly felt sorry for yourselves, you felt as a victim. Why me? Why did I have to get sick? Why did I have to be fired? Why didn't I get this job? Or why didn't this relationship succeed, etc.? In the moments when you were truly a victim, those were probably the hardest times of your lives. And unless you shifted your mindset, nothing was able to change around you. And if you look around and think about someone you know who keeps struggling in all domains of life, whether it's money, career, romantic life, health, you will realize that these people usually are the most negative ones. They emanate all these negative emotions. They are resentful. They are judgmental. They refuse to take accountability. They always blame someone else for their misfortunes. Always someone else betrays them, lets them down. It's never their fault. So unless we change, we shift our mindset, nothing is going to change. And similarly, this same concept applies not only on an individual level, but also on a national level. Guys, a nation that's entire identity is based on victimhood and victimhood only will never be strong and prosperous. It will be forever stuck in this perpetual mode of victimhood with no prospects whatsoever. And many of you know that I'm a proud Armenian. I love my nation. I love my country. But there is one trait, national trait, that I really despise and detest and will never come to good terms with. And that's this inclination to be negative, inclination to thinking of yourself as a victim. And yes, God knows our nation had been through a lot of terrible things throughout history, and we are still being subjected to a lot of unfairness, terrible things, a lot of losses, a lot of misfortunes, a lot of betrayal. And yes, we need to remember that, and we absolutely must learn our lessons from those events. But I refuse to be identified as a victim. I refuse to sit and wait for some other country, a stronger country, a bigger country, an international organization, or whoever that may be to come and save me. I think what we should be doing is channeling all that rage, all that anger, disappointment into creating something, instead of being reactive, being proactive, into constructivism rather than reactivism. And again, imagine if there are too many people that are stuck in those 80%, stuck in this negative mindset, victimhood in a certain country. If the critical mass of those people gets too high at some point, no matter how successful and prosperous a country may have been in the past, if there are too many people relying on the government, relying on the benefits, on welfare, sooner or later that country will start crumbling. Because on the one hand, the social contract will be broken. Those that work their butts off to support themselves, to provide for themselves and their families, and also everyone relying on the government welfare will rebel sooner or later. Economy cannot be sustained for a longer period of time if there are too many people not working and just waiting for someone else to take care of them. And last but not least, energetically, the energy frequency of the country will change. The karma of the country, if you will change, and it will eventually crumble. Because when we look around and analyze all the countries, we will realize that the countries that implemented communism and socialism, and these are the concepts that have this victimhood mentality, the victim, victimizer, the oppressor and the oppressed paradigm as at the core. All these countries failed miserably economically. And I'm saying this as someone who was born in Soviet Armenia, who remembers how there was literally nothing in stores. The basics things weren't available, and there were no supermarkets back then. They were miserable Soviet-operated stores. Why? Because there was no entrepreneurship, no business, no incentive, and those government state-operated organizations, because these are not even companies, they lacked motivation to create high-quality goods or services because the market wasn't free and the basic rules of economics didn't apply. Everything was pre-planned from the industry and the production to people's lives. People knew that it doesn't matter if they worked harder or not that much, because at the end of the day, they would get the same salary as their colleague who would work half-assedly. I don't know if there is such word in English. Just like we wouldn't say, oh, this country is so amazing, they have so many orphans. We wouldn't say this country is so amazing because they have so many people relying on the welfare. So guys, we can't change the government, we can't change the country, we can't change people around us, but we can start changing ourselves, because you yourself is your most important project. So if you catch yourself feeling resentful, if you catch yourself sitting there and waiting for someone else to come and fix your problems, or you blame others, circumstances, people for whatever you're going through right now. By the way, have you noticed that people that are not very successful when it comes to money are usually so resentful and hateful towards rich people? It's like they are excited, they're ecstatic whenever a rich person fails and something doesn't go well in their lives. That's why it's so hard for them to get out of their misery, because they are stuck in that poverty mentality. You only attract what you emanate. Whatever the frequency you vibrate at, you will attract the same thing. So guys, I know it's tiring to be hearing about New Year's resolutions, so I'm not going to talk about New Year's resolutions, but maybe think about what can you change in your life in 2026, in the year of one, in this fresh beginning, the fresh new 9-year cycle, to be more accountable, to take more responsibility, to remind yourself that you are in charge of your life, you are behind the wheel and no one else. Analyze if something is not going well in your life. Why is this happening? Is that your frequency? Maybe you're the one making mistakes with other people. Of course, I'm not encouraging you to go down the rabbit hole of self-blame and self-loathe, not at all. But what can you do in 2026 to change? And if you want to share whatever it may be in the comments to keep yourself accountable, feel free. Or maybe if you have any stories to tell when you felt sorry for yourself, when you felt as a victim and how you got out of it, how it was when you felt that way, and what was the recipe of getting out of that situation. And if you agree or even more so disagree with me and this approach and the way I see this victim and victimizers concept as extremely dangerous and toxic, whatever you think, please share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to read them. And of course, thank you so much for joining me. And I'll see you in the next episode. Take care of yourself. Until then, happy 2026 again.